There are a variety of different ways that you can make flying geese units, and each person has their own preferred method. Using the wing clipper allows us to make traditional flying geese units with a high degree of precision and accuracy by starting out with an oversized block that we trim to perfect size. Another advantage of using the wing clipper is it lets us work with flying geese units that are anywhere from 1/2 inch tall to 1 inch wide, all the way up to 5 inches tall by 10 inches wide. And it comes with instructions for both right and left-handed users, which is great for those who cut with their left hand. As you can see on the cutting tool, all of the measurements are marked, which ensures even greater accuracy. And you'll see more about how we use these different lines and angles as we start working with the tool. I'm going to make a flying geese today that it finishes at 2 inches tall by 4 inches in width. And all of our flying geese units are in a multiple of each other. So whatever the height is, the finished height, times 2 is going to be our finished width. In order to do that, we start out with a square of our main fabric and then 4 smaller squares, which are going to be the triangles off to the sides. So this will be our center or our goose, and these are going to be our sides or our wings, depending on how you refer to your flying geese units. Within the instructions, it tells you precisely the exact measurement that you need to cut each of these units, depending upon what size flying geese unit you're going to be working with. Our first step involves placing right sides together, 2 of the squares on opposite corners of the main square. And now what we're going to do is draw a line and establish where our sewing lines are going to be as we actually sew across all 3 pieces of fabric. I'm going to line up my first line so that we have a 1/4 inch right here from the edge. So I'm going to put the 1/4 inch from center to center point. And that will allow me to draw a sewing line across all of these blocks. And I'm using a water-soluble pen to do this, so that way after it's finished we can easily just wash the quilt and those lines will remove. I'm going to flip the unit around, and again aligning with the tip to the tip on the dotted line, which is a 1/4 inch over from the edge. Then I'm going to draw my second line. And these are our actual sew lines that we'll be sewing on. To hold all of this in place as we're sewing, I am going to insert a couple pins. And now we're ready to go to the sewing machine. As we're ready to sew, I have it positioned so that my sewing line is right underneath my needle. And what I've deliberately done is align this in my sewing machine so that the piece that overlaps here, we're going to sew first so that we come across and then stitch straight onto the second square that's underneath. That'll prevent our presser foot from wanting to catch this and flip it up as we're sewing. And now we're ready to sew our second seam. After we have these 2 lines sewn, next we're going to cut this unit apart. And using our wing clipper as our cutting grid, I'm going to realign right so that we're on from point to point, and then cut this into 2 pieces. The next step is going to be pressing these so that we're pressing towards the 2 small triangles. And I know this seems kind of awkward to be pressing towards our lighter fabric, but we do want to do that regardless of what color fabrics we are using. After we have our triangles pressed away from the center of this, we're going to align the other 2 squares just a smidgen inside the corner, and again draw our stitching lines. And I'm lining up the dashed line with the tip on both sides. And then we'll rotate this. Draw our second stitching line. And then I'm going to pin this in place. And repeat the process for our second unit. And after we've got our 2 stitching lines drawn, we'll pin this one, and then we'll be ready to sew on both of these stitching lines. Under my sewing machine, I have it aligned so that I'll be stitching right down our drawn stitching line. And I'm going to drop my needle just to make sure I'm in that alignment. And then go ahead and start sewing. And we're going to repeat this for the other stitching line. And then we're going to do the exact same thing with the other unit. After we've sewn those last lines, we're going to trim these units apart, same way as before, lining up so that we're cutting right between the 2 stitching lines. And after we've done that, next we're going to press these wings or side triangles open on our Flying Geese units. And our final step is going to be to trim each of these to the perfect size. Using the wing clipper tool, what we're going to do is align the V right here up perfectly with our stitched Flying Geese unit. And I'm going to trim across the side and across the top. And then we're going to flip this unit over. And line up with our 4.5 by 2.5 rectangular measurement right here. Since we're making a 2" by 4" finished Flying Geese, right now we're at 2.5 by 4.5 inches, and that will allow us to trim the other sides to give us a perfect finished Flying Geese unit. And you're going to want to repeat this for all of your Flying Geese units. If you trim left-handed, the instructions do an awesome job of showing the layout for a left-handed person. We're going to orient it so that our Flying Geese unit is in a vertical position. We're going to line up here, and then left-handed, you'll be able to trim safely away from yourself, going up and then across, and then we'll turn the unit so that you can do that same cut again, going up and away with the left hand. After you've trimmed out all of your Flying Geese units, you're then ready to proceed with whatever pattern you're working with that needs Flying Geese. and I've got 4 of them done there. As you can see, once you've trimmed this, you've lost the tips here and have come up with a perfect finish ready for you to proceed with. The wing clipper is an awesome tool that I want to definitely add to my toolbox. It allows me to quickly and easily make flying geese units that I know are perfectly accurate and trimmed to the exact size that I need so that I can make perfectly pieced blocks. I hope you have as much fun working with the wing clipper as I did.